It's summer. That means you can actually go outside without contracting frostbite in minutes. The daylight hours are longer, and everyone outside is in less than pants, regardless of whether or not that's in good taste. Which means you, as a reasonable human being, are probably staying indoors because that's where the bleeding air conditioning is. Since you're not driving to the boards or gleaming the cube, chances are you're indulging in any number of charity gaming initiatives, which may or may not involve 160-hour-plus streaming marathons or randomized runs of one of my favorite RPGs of all time, Final Fantasy V. I was particularly impressed by the GBA adaptation of that one, so I had high expectations going into Final Fantasy VI Advance. For instance, I expected to be called the son of a submariner. What did I get? Sandworm? This isn't FF5, Kefka, get it together. While the sordid tale of 12 people and a Moogle and a Yeti hasn't changed, certain bits of it have. It's not the kind of wide-scope translation overhaul that his predecessor faced mind, but rather alterations of some of the more controversial sections. Like when Celis totally isn't getting the crap beaten out of her, or just whose throat Shadow would slit and for how much. I can understand a little bit of revision, but when you're dealing with a game considered by many to be the best RPG of its console generation, and which has had an absolutely ravenous fan following going strong now almost 2 decades on, it threatens to run afoul of just those folks who are looking for a decent portable copy of their favorite game. Well, back in 2007 at least. We'll just pretend that the typo-laden iOS port never even happened at all. At least they didn't try to drastically alter the graphics or audio, more than to conform to the limitations of the GBA. Alright, so there are a couple of stumbling blocks, but the point stands. It's Final Fantasy VI. There's a reason it stood up to the test of time, despite the notoriously buggy original work. A number of errors have been patched up, and just as many haven't been. Or in the case of Psycho Cyan, qu'est-ce que c'est? They've been kind of patched, but you can still use them, but in a different way. And the stuff that was intended to be broken, like most of Gao, is still quite broken. Nightshade Rage might be called Rafflesia now, but the important part is that it's still the most absurdly overpowered thing since Broken came to Brokenville. Any power that allows me to defeat an endgame boss by hitting them once and walking away from the game for 20 minutes deserves the real overhaul. But hey, at least the evasion stat, does something now. Yes, I have some gripes about Final Fantasy VI and this version in particular, but they're somewhat offset by the UI improvements that have been made. Much like 5, you have the option of converting your usual list of commands into a D-pad aliased system, which allows you to blaze through battles like a blue thing. 2 new dungeons have been added as well, the Dragon's Den and the 128th floor Shrine of Souls, because who doesn't like a good post-game challenge? While this version isn't going to convert anyone to the Cult of Kefka, it's about as sound a version of the game as we can obtain here in the West. It's just not the massive step forward that, frankly, Final Fantasy V needed. At least the majority of tricks I learned as a hardcore Essentia fanboy still work.